Hello friends, Namaste, Sasriyakal and Salam. Welcome to yet another episode of the talk show Sajid Nair, Tourism, Hospitality and Aviation. Today's guest is a biologist, ecologist. Yes, what's the job like? What are the activities? What happens where? You have answers? We have the right person, experienced person in this particular area. Let's welcome Mr. Anirudh Chowji, biologist, Tadoba Adhari Tiger Reserve. Welcome, sir.
Hi, Sajan. It's a pleasure meeting you. Pleasure meeting you online. COVID days. I don't think we can formally come and meet each other. But yes, I think it's a virtual meeting.
Sir, I promise you, not today, not tomorrow, but yes, in the days to come, I will be coming to Tadoba and visiting you. I'll be meeting you in person.
Yeah. That will be a pleasure.
Right. So we get straight on to the work area is concerned. We would like to know, how did you start about, what interests you? How did you become a biologist? We would like to start from there.
Okay, let me go back in times. My father is from the armed forces.
Okay.
He was in the Indian Air Force. And, the Air Force stations are always situated outside the cities. And so every evening walk would mean that we would meet some jackals, maybe fox cubs, hares, and that's how we were brought up. So I thought that was the natural, the normal for everyone. I didn't know that everyone was so lucky. In my growing up years, my father was posted in Nagpur. And that is the time when on a long weekend, we would always be taken to Totlado, Ranido. And these names got deeply ingrained into my head, even as a little kid. Later on, I came to know they were a part of Painch Tiger Reserve or Navegaon Nagzira Tiger Reserve or Tadoba Tiger Reserve. And this is where we spent our long weekends. So my dad, I don't think ever took us for a movie or shopping or any of those regulars. So somewhere I think it was in the genes. Being jungly was in the genes. And that's how I've grown up. I went on to run one of the most popular wildlife and adventure companies called Pugmarks. Ran it, we camped in Africa, we camped in Southeast Asia, but more important, we camped all over the country, right from Andamans, Lakshadweep to the higher Himalayas. And this is where we took youngsters to go and explore India and look at the Indian forests. And this is where I think a lot of these youngsters got exposed to what was probably only in textbooks or not even in the textbooks, because you ask any kid, name 5 birds, they would start with ostrich, penguin, birds which are not Indian. And this used to be a problem. I said, don't you know any Indian birds? They say, Indian birds? No. Peacock, crow. I said, okay. So by exposing these youngsters to our outdoors, you can get them to fall in love with nature, fall in love with these Indian forests, and not just Masai Mara. I mean, Masai Mara is beautiful, but Indian forests are equally beautiful. And these are very different. The character of Indian forest is very different. You don't see as much wildlife in the Indian forest, but you experience much more. In Masai Mara, 5 kilometers away, there could be an elephant standing and you could tell the driver, come, let's go to see that elephant. In India, 10 meters from you, there could be an elephant standing behind the lantana bush or the bamboo, and you don't know that there's an elephant. So that's how I've grown up. And I ran this company till the age of 49, sold it, and I said, okay, I'll retire now and join the forest department. That's how I came into the forest department.
Very interesting. So, the tourism point of view, Mr. Chaubey, the thing is that has there been a change in the last decade or so, the way tourism and forest, have they come together? Has there been a change? What has been your observation as such?
In my growing up years, when I when my book used to be opened by my friends, they said, "ये कुत्ते बिल्ली के photos इकट्ठा करने वाला आदमी है."
Right.
What nonsense! He said, "See, look at all the animals in your notebook." So when I was growing up, I used to be like, that lone warrior. I mean, not even a warrior. I mean, just that lonely person who liked trees, butterflies, birds, and animals.
Mhm.
Today, I would say there are three contributors to a very different India. The first and the biggest contributor, I would say, is the media. Look at publications like Sanctuary Asia, Savers, Down to Earth. Look at newspapers. Indian Express, Times of India, and all, even the vernacular media carries a lot of wildlife news these days. So I would say, one, I would attribute a lot to our Indian media. Second, I'll say the Indian judiciary. People like MC Mehta and others have really got environment to the forefront of the society. Protection of environment, reduction in pollution. I mean, these are things that we didn't even look at until people like MC Mehta. There are many others also, but I'm just giving you one of the names. The judiciary has started looking at environment. And the third is groups like Pagmax, the group that I ran. See, I'll give you an example. If you like a teacher in your school, you tend to do better in that teacher's subject. It's simple as that. First and foremost, you need people to fall in love with the tiger, the forest, the birds. Then can you expect a respect to generate? And when respect generates, people can work for its protection and conservation. If you ask someone, come, let's pick up garbage, they'll say, why?
Right.
Or let's clean up some area, they'll say, no, rubbish. But the moment they fall in love with the outdoors, they have experienced what a forest is like, and they say, yes, I need to protect the outdoors. So that is how probably it all began.
Mr. Chowji, there will be many of my viewers who are youngsters, very youngsters. They do not know what a biologist is, what are the activities, what do they work on, what do they give to society. So I would like to know it from you itself. What exactly, where does the work span go about? How does the ecosystem come into picture, and so on and so forth?
See, as a biologist, I'm at Tadoba as a biologist, but my work is slightly broader than just being a biologist.
Mhm.
I am a landscape ecologist.
Okay.
I look at the landscape ecology, and landscape ecology is, it's a multidisciplinary subject. You need to understand a particular habitat, and then by maybe, the habitat has been altered due to human actions. What corrective measures are required so that the birds, animals, and reptiles and insects will start using that habitat again? So biologists would only look at the birds, animals, and the insects. But as an ecologist, I would also look at habitats which have undergone changes. I'll give you an example. There is a very famous cement company in Gujarat. So when I was working on a restoration project with them, I realized that the water in their mines, which is the rainwater, was not being used by birds or not being used by people either. We realized that the pH of that water was almost 10.5 to 11.5, which is highly alkaline,
Right.
unusable. So then, as an ecologist, what I had to do, I had to ensure that the pH came down. And there are simple mechanisms. You can even start with, cow dung. So as the cow dung decomposes, it leaves acids, which reduces the pH. But then, if you reduce the pH, there's no meter which says, okay, you put that meter in the water and the water, you say, okay, the mine, the cement mine is restored. But instead, there are indicators. The moment you see birds utilizing that water body, you say, the birds are finding food, which means that they are insects, which means that they are fish, which means that there is a food chain which has got established. So in that cement factory restoration, what I was doing is I was trying to restore the water body and using birds as indicators. And one morning when I was driving to the mine, I suddenly saw a huge bird. It's called an osprey. And osprey is actually a fish-eating eagle. It catches fish from the water surface. Beautiful. I was thrilled because seeing an osprey on a water body is like seeing a tiger in a forest. And tiger is at the top of the food chain. So seeing the osprey, the top of the food chain of that water body, I said, wow, now I can say this water body is on the way of getting restored. So 1 year later, I suddenly saw there were diesel pumps next to the water body. And I asked the mine engineer, what are those pumps? He said, sir, the water is being used by the farmers in the neighboring area for doing agriculture. I said, okay. Till now they were not doing. He said, no, now they are seeing that the water is very useful. So suddenly what we were able to do is we used this water not only for birds and animals, but the local farmers started using huge stocks of water, very huge, because these mines are massive. So these farmers started getting water for a second crop after the rains. It started helping them earn a better livelihood. So only a biologist or a scientist, an ecologist plays a slightly different role. He cross connects between a habitat and organisms. So that is what I do in Tadoba. In Tadoba, I'll quickly tell you a very interesting story.
Yes, very much.
When I'm a bird watcher basically, and while watching birds, I suddenly realized that there is a bird called the barbet. If you go to any Indian forest, you would hear this call. This is the call of a barbet, the green barbets. And surprisingly, in Tadoba, I did not get to hear this bird often. I said, okay. Then there is the state bird of Maharashtra, the green pigeon. We saw the green pigeon, but not as commonly as I would see it in other forests. I was wondering, something seems to be missing. So suddenly we realized that Tadoba has a beautiful forest of bamboo and teak. And unfortunately, both of them don't fruit. And because they don't fruit, you don't have frugivorous, the fruit-eating birds. And frugivorous birds are very important because they are the farmers of the forest. They eat the fruits and then they go and drop the seeds at different places. That's how the forest grows. So now in some areas where we have our forest kutis or forest chowkis, we've started planting a few ficus trees, the banyan, the peepal, and the umbar, so that 10 years down the line, when these trees grow up and when they fruit, you'll see more frugivorous birds in Tadoba. That is the role of an ecologist.
Very interesting. Very interesting. A lot of information. You use three words: habitat and Tadoba and tiger. So let's have something about Tadoba Tiger Reserve as such as information. What would you like to share?
Yeah. So Sajan, I want to tell you a reason for being associated with Tadoba. Now, I've been associated with Tadoba Tiger Reserve for almost 8-9 years now.
Okay.
Even when I was running Pugmarks, I would come here. I came here basically to train the local youth to become guides, drivers, and ecotourism operators. So I'm talking of the year 2013. Tadoba had around 35 tigers, 35. In the year 2019-20, we have 115 tigers in Tadoba.
Achievement.
Yeah. We don't have any breeding center. Tadoba, the forest itself is a maternity ward. It's a huge maternity ward. And every now and then you keep seeing females walking with 2 or 3 or 4 cubs. And that's how the numbers are increasing. The reason for Tadoba in becoming one of the finest tiger reserves is, one, as a habitat, Tadoba has very strong prey base, by which I mean we have a strong population of sambar deer, spotted deer, wild boar, Indian gaur, that's the huge 1,000 kg animal, So these are the animals that the tigers and the leopards prey on. So automatically the number increases, and automatically the number of surviving cubs also increases. Along with, the reason for these prey animals to increase is Tadoba, the forest department, the management as we call it, has increased the water holding in small water bodies, small lakes inside the forest extensively. So Tadoba has a lot of water, which means there is ground moisture, which means there is a good vegetative growth, which means a lot of these herbivores are supported, which in turn support the tigers. So it's not magical that from 35 we went to 115, 115 tigers, 250 leopards, and a very large number of sloth bears and wild dogs. So Tadoba is a very rich tiger reserve. So along with tiger, of course, you have all the others. The second reason for such a large tiger number is the local population. So what Tadoba did differently, Tadoba engaged the local community, made the local community stakeholders in conservation, which means that look at ecotourism model. If you look at Ranthambore, Kana, Bandhavgarh, Corbett, Mudumala, look at any forest, each and every forest would have 2 or 3 gates, as they are called. And then once you enter the gate, you have zones where you can go for your safaris. Tadoba differed. Tadoba doesn't have 2 or 3 gates. Tadoba has 19 gates. 19 gates support almost about 30 plus villages. Villagers from these 30 villages today ensure that tigers remain a very strong number in Tadoba because their livelihood depends on these tigers. So I would consider these two, habitat development and the community involvement, both are the result of a very progressive forest department. The forest officers have looked at both these aspects from a very different angle. And I would really hope a lot of others are inspired.
Since we have spoken about tigers, just to add value to it, any anecdote you remember in encountering a tiger, or anything that you can share with us for some minute or two?
See, whenever I'm talking to the local community, I keep mentioning to them a very basic fact. I say, as far as the tigers and the leopards are concerned, please do not be scared of them. They will never ever harm you. If you have to be scared of an animal, in the Tadoba forest, 2 animals that you need to be scared of is sloth bear and wild boar, wild pig. Both these animals have their food on the ground. Their insects, their fruits, and everything is on the ground. So their whole attention is on the ground. And when human beings enter the forest for different reasons, the face-to-face encounter between humans and these 2 animals is very dangerous. Because both these animals are not bothered about the surrounding area. I mean, they are more concerned about finding the food. And when they meet each other face-to-face, they're too close to each other. And we have accidents. But we also have deaths due to tigers and leopards. And one of the biggest reasons for that, and this is where the management of Tadoba is really very active, is we try to ensure that people's dependence on the forest reduces as far as possible. So when you reduce the dependence on the forest, what actually happens is by ensuring that people don't venture into the forest for collecting bamboo, collecting honey, collecting minor forest produce, but more important, going for defecating into the forest. So when you are collecting any of these minor forest produce, like say maua flowers, or if you're collecting some seeds and you're sitting down on the ground, you appear to be a monkey, a langur. And that is when most of the attacks take place. So the forest department has helped the local communities build toilets in the villages. So building toilets helps reduce the conflicts with wildlife. I would like to relate one very interesting anecdote.
Yes.
I hope we are not running short of time.
No, not really. Please go ahead. It's very interesting.
So it was around 5 months ago. My house, later, if there is time, I'll show you where my house is located. This is my quarter that's being given to me by the forest department. And my house, I don't have any neighbors. My only neighbors are the forest department elephants. I get to see them and meet them every day. But next to my house is the forest. I'm actually living in the core area. The quarter is in the core. So this was around 5 months ago. At night, there's a loud tiger roaring and continuous roaring. And this happens when the tigers are mating. So there was a male and a female tiger. They were mating, and there's a loud calling that continuously keeps going on with it. It's a huge call. And this was disturbing our elephants. We had an elephant, female elephant who was pregnant, another elephant with a little calf.
My God. Okay.
And the male elephant was very insecure because of this tiger's calling. And as a result, the male elephant was calling from the other side. And from one side, the tigers were calling. So taking 3 or 4 of these elephant staff, I said, come, we need to go and check up on that tiger. So we walked into the forest, and the tiger walked about 200 feet from us. It walked, and there were 4 of us or 5 of us, I don't remember. We have 4 or 5 people standing and watching the tiger, but the tiger was so busy in his mating ritual that he didn't even notice. Anyway, he walked from the forest and he walked towards the road from which we had come. So I quickly told these people, come, we need to go towards the road. He's coming on the road now. When we went on the road, there's a small pulia, a small bridge, which is probably 3 feet tall and about 7 or 8 feet long. We are 4 or 5 of us, we are sitting behind that bridge, trying to hide from the tiger. And suddenly the tiger came on the road. And as the tiger came on the road, one of our people, I don't know, probably out of excitement, suddenly stood up. And I said, sit down, sit quickly. And he sat down. But that tiger, from a distance of about 200 feet, noticed a movement. But then we are all sitting down. So which means we are monkeys, langurs, and we are not human beings anyway. So the tiger started moving a little towards us, fully attentive, trying to figure out what is this? Is this some kind of food? Or is it an enemy? Is it needed to be handled? So probably those must be the questions that must be going on in his mind. I said, this guy looks nasty now. We need to keep a watch. If he takes 3 steps towards us, we need to stand up. And next moment, this guy walked, right? I mean, kind of sprinted towards us. The first thing we did is all of us, we stood up. So what happens is, when a human being stands up on 2 legs, he's the most dangerous animal on this planet. Simple. And immediately when the tiger realized that we are human beings, you'd see in Cartoon Network, you'd see Tom and Jerry, and one of them suddenly takes a 360-degree turn and runs away. That's what the tiger did. He took a 360 turn and boom, he vanished into the forest. So if you are aware of these animals, I mean, you're very safe in the jungle. If you ask me to go from Andheri to maybe South Bombay at 2 o'clock at night, I will not do.
Right.
Because रास्ते पे चोर उचक्के डाकू होते हैं भैया, जंगल में नहीं होते कोई.
सर मेरा
जंगल में भी
यही था कि आपने बोला आपका घर is right in midst of the forest. You are safe every day, right? Just out of curiosity, I'm asking.
So the knob of my door, I have a strong kind of a mesh outside. So as I'm sitting here, I'm sitting in a cage. I'm inside the cage and the animals are outside. Okay. So in about 15-20 minutes time, there'll be about 200 spotted deer in front of my house. And much of food, the other friends also come. Right. The carnivores come. Right. And then you hear the alarm calling of the spotted deer. Then the langur starts calling. But inside this place, I'm very safe. There's one friend who comes sometimes. I have a light up here. that light attracts insects.
Right.
So there's the sloth bear who comes and sits outside my meshed door, and he keeps trying to push the door because he is unable to access the insects that are falling on the ground. So my knob is actually bent like this, the door knob. It's very funny, but very safe. You need to take your, see, I mean, you don't want to come and give them a shock, because if you give them a shock, their reactions are far quicker, faster. I'm about 80 kgs. A tiger is 200 plus, up to 225, 250 kgs. And he moves like lightning. A leopard, which is much smaller, can haul a sambar deer, which is 70, 80 kgs, up a tree. Imagine climbing a tree with a sambar deer. That is what a leopard is capable of doing. Sloth bears can fight tigers. And often both of them can die or either of them can die. It's not necessarily that only sloth bear will die. So these are powerful animals. So you need to respect them. And I need to respect that I am in their territory.
Yeah.
And live accordingly. So I'm not, it's no bravado that I'm saying that I'm in the core and I'm surviving. I'm saying that I'm surviving because I'm taking precautions. So this is something I've learned from my Adivasi friends. At night, they go back home. But no tiger or leopard or in South Indian forests, elephants ever attack them. For the reason that when they run, when they go home at night, they run, they don't walk. So that stamping moves snakes away. And all the time they're singing, it moves all the other animals away. They know that there's a human being coming and we need to be safe and we need to move off. So these are small little things that we need to take precautions in a forest.
Moving the discussion to another area, that is tourism and wildlife. When I come to Tadoba, when should I come? When is the ideal time? One. And two, what should I include in my itinerary? I should include in my itinerary when I visit Tadoba? Your views on that?
I would, when I said we have 115 tigers in Tadoba, I would invite you to explore the forest and not just see the tiger. Many people come to the forest with a single-minded agenda that I am here to see the tiger. It doesn't work that way. If you and I could see the tiger so easily, the spotted deer, the sambar deer, and the gaur would also see the tiger so easily, and the tiger would have a upvas every day. But the tiger numbers are going up, which means that they hide well, they camouflage well, and sometimes if you're lucky and if you're on the right time at the right place, you'll surely see the tiger. But more than the tiger, please come and see our beautiful forest. So having said that, one of the best times to come and see Tadoba is during monsoons or immediately after monsoons. Seeing wildlife in monsoon and post-monsoon is slightly difficult because, the vegetation is very strong. But you see a spectacular forest. You see water running in the streams. This is the time when a lot of animals have bred. So spotted deer calves, sambar deer calves, a lot of young ones, peacock babies, jungle fowl babies. You can see all of them. So monsoon and post-monsoon is very good time. But if you really want to see the tigers and animals, come after March, April, May, June, good time. But remember, you're coming in about 47 degrees centigrade temperature, which is 115 to 120 Fahrenheit. So if you can tolerate that, I'm sure you can see the tigers. And you would be jealous of the tigers because you are bearing the heat, and the tigers would be sitting in some, the water bodies that we have. They would be enjoying the awesome bath over there. But what should you have in your, how many days should you plan and what should you do in Tadoba? Very interesting. Thanks for that question. Unfortunately, most people come here and do safaris like morning, evening, morning, evening, morning, evening. So they do 3 days, 6 safaris and go back. That is not the way to see Tadoba. If you're staying here for 3 full days, which would mean about 3 nights or 4 nights, That would be a very typical. Please explore safaris, yes, but also explore the Tadoba activities. You can sit on a machan. You can sit on a log hut. You can go for a boat ride. You can go for kayaking. You can go for cycling. You can go for a nature trail. There are so many things that you can do in Tadoba. You can go and watch our butterflies in the butterfly garden. We have a huge diorama. You can go and experience what education in environment can be done through a diorama. Tadoba is very different. What we have done is we've dispersed our tourists. So Kana, Bandhavgarh, Ranthambore, every morning at the gate you have fights. Some places you have even marpits, brawls. Because the only activity that you can do there is a safari. And if you can't do a safari, please go and rest in your lodge or resort or hotel, wherever you stay. In Tadoba, n number of things. So, in fact, we have a beautiful website called mytadoba.org. It's our government website. And mytadoba.org helps you look at all these different activities. And remember, Tadoba has 19 gates.
Yeah.
So you need to plan accordingly where you're going to stay, because our gates can be separated by 100 kilometers. So you need to stay in a particular zone and plan your activities. One very unique activity to Tadoba is a night patrolling. You can go for a night drive in Tadoba on the roads that vehicles fly on, and you get to see a lot of wildlife. And searching for wildlife at night is even more tricky and even more amazing experience. I'm sure you'll love that.
Okay.
Yeah.
We are running completely out of time, but still I want to have one question because it's very important. I cannot leave you without asking that. Is you spoke about the community inside the forest. How much of a role do they play in sustainable uh, uh, habitat of the entire forest is concerned, and what is being done in that area will be my last question for the day.
Thanks. So many forests around Tadoba also have areas just as much as Tadoba does. But unfortunately, their wildlife numbers, if I may say, their tiger numbers, don't actually match up with Tadoba's numbers. And the reason is a lot of these communities around the forest are involved in bush meat consumption. So they kill a lot of trap, snare, and kill a lot of wild boars, blue bulls, sambar deer, spotted deer. These are deers and boars which come into their farms at night to destroy their farms. So, so many of these forests, the local communities have not been involved by the forest department. And that is where problems have arisen, and people have taken law into their own hands and they poach, they kill. In Tadoba, we realized that this is a problem. We started answering that. We started giving the community solar fencings, which are battery operated fences, which don't kill the animal, but the animal runs away when it gets that small 12-volt shock. Then, more important, we've ensured that the local communities do not have to depend on Tadoba forest. Instead, we have started livelihood generation activities for them. Not only ecotourism, because ecotourism is restricted to a few numbers, but we have a lot of livelihood activities. We have agarbatti making plants. We have our people who are trained in skills like with Ashok Leyland, we train people to become drivers. With Montfort and with Pratham, we give skill development where people can seek employment. So this is where the dependence of people on the forest has reduced substantially. This is how you involve the community. By using a danda and telling them, no, you can't enter the forest, has not worked for 250 years. British were unsuccessful, and 70 years of Indian forests also were unsuccessful.
You have to
Tadoba
from an alternative way of life. That is very important. You can't, yes, it's very true.
Very true.
All right, sir, we are completely out of time, but the conversation went on for 40 minutes now, and it was very interesting. And I'm sure, very sure about the fact that many of the youngsters who are watching this video will find it very informative too. Thank you for joining us today. And I do tell all my guests that we may have a webinar kind of a thing in the months to come. So you will be one of the invitees in that particular event as such. And we would like to know more about what Tadoba is and what activities you do there.
Sajan, if I can take 1 minute more.
Yes, sure.
Before I leave, keep watching the website. This is for the youngsters.
Yeah.
We will soon be having volunteering opportunities for youngsters to come to Tadoba and work with the forest department as volunteers.
Repeat the website. What is the name you repeat? Just can you repeat it kindly?
My Tadoba, Tadoba, it's a single word.
Yeah.
mytadoba.org.
mytadoba.org.
Yeah, I have not put it up, but very soon we'll be putting up volunteering opportunities in Tadoba.
Thank you for the information. I bid you goodbye today, but yes, very soon to see you also directly. I'll have plans to come to Tadoba also. Thank you so much.
Pleasure is all mine.
Yeah. Bye. See you.